tell me it's a walk in the park. Y'all too smart, can't talk from the heart. I got sauce and it's all for the charts. No aux in the car. Ride around bumping that first blueprint on this. I ain't trying to hear what the info is. I been trying to move on the impulsive tip. Do you want dip? I can tell you ain't having that much fun. 3 years in with your ex-boyfriend, y'all tied that knot, but it's back undone. Oh yeah, I'm trying to stack 110. You ain't gotta ask where that come from. I ain't never rock no pack, son. I was on the pack at the mall, same mess. I skip class, no hallway pass. I'm team cap, you was always last. She got good hands in the all-state. I got good kids and they all came fast. I ain't gotta say it, you can come to the Ville. Just ask who's hot, they gon' all say Jack. Told me stay down, but I always have. When I come around, man, they always ask, how does it feel? Oh. Ain't shit, tell me it's a walk in the park. Y'all too smart, can't talk from the heart. I got sauce and it's all for the charts. Started my night with the light. When I got to the club, I was all for the dark. And I'm on a wave like a dolphin and shark. Y'all took shots, they was all for the mark. Keep it raw from the start.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Tigers Tonight. I'm your host, John Maddox, joined as always by the best co-host in all the land. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Tigers Tonight. Why am I getting Maddox, joined as always by the best co-host in all the land? All right, that's better. I think it went away. All right. Sorry about that. Yeah, don't know what's going on there. Let's start with our New Jersey office this evening. Mr. Moss, how are things up in the wild north? Don't know what's going on there. Let's start with our New Jersey office.
I'm still hearing an echo, so
Mr.
hopefully
Moss, how are things up in the
pretty
wild
soon.
north? Don't know what's going on there. Let's start with our New Jersey office.
I'm still hearing an echo.
Mr. Moss, how are things up in the
Pretty
wild
soon.
north? Don't know what's going on there. Let's start with our New Jersey office.
I'm still hearing an echo.
Sorry, y'all. I'm hitting the wrong button here, I think. Hold on. Who knows? Go ahead. Let me see if I can. You guys take it for a minute. Let me see if I can find some headphones.
The New York office.
Go ahead. Let me see if I can.
Is doing all
you guys
right.
take it for a minute. Let me see if I can
Hopefully
find some
the echo
headphones.
will stop here pretty soon. The New York office.
Go ahead. Let me see if I can.
Is doing all
you guys
right.
take it for a minute. Let me see if I can
Hopefully
find some
the echo
headphones.
will.
The
Rough start.
echo will.
All right. Can we hear everything?
Rough start.
Sweet. I don't hear any echo. How about you guys? Can we hear everything?
Rough start.
Sweet. I don't hear any echo. How about you guys? Oh, I hear it again.
All right. Is everything normal for me now? Yeah, my speakers went crazy. Like I was hearing it 3 times. Like I think I was hearing it from one of you and then hearing it twice through my speaker. So yeah, all good?
Seems like it.
All right, let's roll.
I think we're there. All right.
All right. Yeah, I feel like the Troy backup quarterback
Woo.
from we lost Bryan. We're off to a great start here, guys. I feel like the Troy backup quarterback on Saturday. So
and we spent all that time on Goose, right? All that time last week explaining who Goose was and how he got the name, and then he plays like 3 plays and that's it. And then we, which all kidding aside, I hope he recovers very quickly and plays very well the rest of the season. But that really changed the complexion of the game. I know we're going to get into this a little bit deeper, but losing Goose. We talked a lot about the speed that they had at wide receiver, but they just never were able to utilize that. Other than the one play that got called back.
Yeah, and it was kind of a, oh no, here we go again. When that first play happened, it was, I want to say, second play of the game, third play of the game, because it was the same thing Georgia State did to Memphis, right? It was that right up the seam. They got their fast wide receiver Mothershed isolated on a safety and took him right down the middle of the field. We didn't go with him, and so Memphis gave up a long touchdown. If you weren't following the game, Memphis gave up the long touchdown. It gets called back for an illegal formation, which was a good call, by the way. And then 2 plays later, it's 3rd and long, and Goose goes back, Crowder goes back to pass and rolls out, and I think it was Matt Adcocker. It was one of the Memphis linebackers just absolutely flattened him. He did that thing, where he puts his arm down to stop the fall. And word in the booth was, I don't want to speculate, but there was a broken collarbone. And Jeb just said that getting screws might be back in November. And if you remember, it's what happened to the poor guy last year. So he'll be happy to not see Memphis anymore. He got crushed. And when he got hit and we saw him down, I just thought, oh, this is just an injury. But I don't mean to disparage Tucker Kilcrease in any. This is going to be disparaging no matter how I cover it. He might be Bryan. It would have been impossible, I think, for him to play any worse than he did. Until that last drive, he was 4 of 22 for like 12 yards. Like it's the worst FBS performance I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, credit to the Memphis defense. Even if Goose did not get hurt, I mean, when you take a look at the plays beforehand, I think Memphis, did very well. I mean, what was he? Only 2 for 3 for 7 yards. So, the Hankins' game plan for this game was phenomenal, because I thought it was going to be, closer. Even my bold prediction, on the message boards was that, Troy was going to lead at halftime, but Memphis will come back. But man, what a performance by the Memphis defense.
I think one thing that happened, and we asked Ryan about that Monday, and he was kind of coy about, or actually after the game. I think Memphis did a really good job, Larry, of blood in the water with Kilcrease. Like that first drive, you saw, oh man, we can get this. Like, we're getting this guy, and they just came after him.
Well, and so first thing is we were able to get pressure with just 5 guys, which is huge, because then all of a sudden now you can play 7 back, which is going to be tough for any quarterback. So once we've realized that we could get pressure without having to blitz a lot, well, now all of a sudden, like as you said, John, now there's blood in the water, because the reality was, I'm not sure. I know that Goose would have been better because he would have made faster reads and things of that nature. But the bottom line was we were getting pressure without having to blitz. And when you can lay back 7 guys, man, is it hard to pass. The other thing was, and I got to give us a lot of credit, we really we just put 7 guys in the box and said, you're not going to run, you're not going to pass. I mean, that's just the bottom line. And so what you actually saw was a pretty base defense that was just better than what Troy had up front. And John, you and I have talked about this before. If you can control the line of scrimmage, it makes everything look really easy.
Yeah, and Rich brings up a good point. Said quarterback couldn't complete a pass. The guys were wide open. And that is true. Like, there were several occasions where guys were open. Like, it wasn't like the Memphis defense just played lockdown coverage everywhere. There were some times where guys were open, and he just couldn't. He just was not physically able to get the ball there. And it was the ultimate example of a guy not being ready. Coach Silverfield talks about this a lot. Next man up, and then the lineman over on the left side, he gets hurt. And then now, like you said, you can just basically shell up. You can put 7 back. You can just bring 5. And that makes it hard for a starting quarterback. But it was really funny in the press box. I said it out loud, and this is probably not the most professional thing I've ever said. I said, but why can the third guy cannot be worse? And they're like, oh, no, he's worse. He's just smaller. I was like, oh no, we don't need to see him. But the good thing is, Memphis is without Greg DeRosier again. Chauncey Logan did not play. Chauncey Logan's back at the top of the depth chart for this week, but Greg DeRosier is now listed as the bottom part of the for the Arkansas game. But so you had Frank Peasant step up. You had Bodiford step up. I mean, you did some good things on offense in a game, Larry, Bryan, that you needed to just not show a knot. Let's just get out of here. 28-7, cool. And let's just get out of here. Nobody else hurt, get the win, and move on to the next week.
Yeah, I mean, great job by the offensive line. I mean, when you look at Sutton Smith, he averaged over 6 yards a carry. Peasant over 6 yards a carry. So I mean, they were opening up some holes. Kudos to that offensive line. And I was really, in the beginning of the year, I was, the talent was there, but I wanted to see how fast or how well does this offensive line can they gel together. And for the first few games, it looks like they've come together pretty good. But the big test will be this Saturday. But the receiving core, I think there was only 2 drops in the game, so that's that's a big plus. So yeah, all around, it was good to see Memphis, come out and just handle their business.
Yeah, Bryce Anderson's drop was a touchdown.
Yeah,
Like there was nobody within 20 yards. But I do have to say, Brady Cluse's catch in the back corner of the end zone
brilliant.
might be the best catch I've ever seen in person. The video doesn't really do it justice of how difficult of a catch that was. When you watched it in real time and then saw it on the big screen, it's one of the best catches I've ever seen. And it's his first career touchdown pass. But if I'd have told you guys, this is something I learned. If I'd have told you guys that Sutton Smith did not or was close to a career high in rushing, would you have believed me?
Yeah.
His career high is 115 yards.
Yep. Yeah, but he didn't play hardly at all last year, and but even his freshman year.
Oh, I agree, but I think we just think of him as more.
Yeah, I would have guessed more than 115.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, even though he didn't play last year in his freshman year, he was very D'Angelo-esque in his usage his freshman year. But yeah, I was just stunned, and they gave it to him. He had like 120 yards, I think, because they gave him 10 extra yards and 123, and then they pulled it back because they said he stepped out of bounds. And he was not very happy in the post-game press conference about that. But it was good to see guys, kind of let loose and have a little fun in a game that, again, I think we can all agree there was one good thing about 2:34 on Saturday afternoon. The Tom Bowen for SBC Commissioner Road Tour is officially canceled.
It's over.
We are done. We don't have to do that anymore. But I would also be remiss to say that campus, I was stunned at how beautiful Troy's campus was and how nice that stadium is. And
given where it's located.
Troy's not the greatest town. And
right.
I also would be remiss not to say that was one of the most professionally run SID offices, and just the way they treated us. Dan O'Brien, who's the producer for the Memphis Radio Network, he known Dan forever. He texted me a picture. You cannot understand like the variety of soda that they had. And that may sound like a little thing to a lot of people, but considering 2 weeks ago, the pizza for the 6:00 game arrived to the field at 2:30. So you can imagine what kind of shape it was in by the time it made it to 6:00. And then they ran out of water in the first quarter. We had Chick-fil-A, which is why you weren't there, Bryan, because you would have exceeded the allotment. We had Dunkin' Donuts. We had they had Mr. Pibb and Mr. Pibb Zero. So I digress. I just want to shout out to Adam and his team because they did an outstanding job making sure we were taken care of, and it was just super professional. And again, the stadium stunned me with how beautiful that campus was. And I was a little surprised it wasn't more crowded, but I will tell you it was flipping hot. Like it was so hot because there was not nary a cloud in the sky. It was hot.
Plus, and I know we talk about this with Memphis, Alabama was playing and Auburn was playing at the same time. So that's, it just is what it is. You're going to lose a few fans who, A, it's hot as hell, and B, that I can go to the bar and watch this game and the Auburn and the Alabama game at the same time.
Yeah, and I think the other part of that also, I think that also played a part in hotel selection. There weren't a lot, and I actually stayed in Troy, and I can't really. I mean, Troy. I stayed there last year on the way to Tallahassee. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just I'm done. Yeah, I'm done with that tour. The only school like that I ever care to play again at are maybe Southern and maybe Arkansas State. But
And
I
Arkansas
digress.
State's got a nice stadium, and it Jonesboro's fine, and Hattiesburg's got the stadium's not very nice, but the city's fine. But you're right, John. Like there's just no reason for us to go to. I will hold out for Middle Tennessee, although they're not Sun Belt. But the point is, similar ilk. But you're right, John. Like there's just no reason for us to go to Texas State. Or
Well, you can do it once, but the thing that got me was the whole back to back. Like we go to Georgia State, which that there's circumstance there, and then we go to Troy, like that. Because I mean, for being real, Iowa State, for some godforsaken reason, played at Jonesboro on
yeah,
Saturday.
and Jonesboro.
Yeah,
Why?
and there was another one of those. SMU was at Missouri State, but those are part of 3-for-1s. So I it's over. And Bryan, let's move back kind of on the field. We're a quarter of the way through the season. Where Memphis is 3-0, which I think
We all
cooler heads thought Memphis would be 3-0. I'll admit I was a little more nervous, frankly, than I should have been going in. Um, to the game. But what is kind of your takeaway from the first quarter of the season?
what to me is Brendan Lewis. We talked off air. Brendan Lewis now has the same amount of rushing yards, 190 yards, as did Seth Hennigan did all of last season. And Seth, I think you said Seth averaged what 2 point something yards per carry.
2.2. Yep.
2.2, and now Brendan Lewis is averaging almost 5.9. So to me, I mean, it's finally good to see a Memphis offense with a dual threat quarterback, because I think that was that's something I wanted to see for the past 10 years. When you look at Fuente's offense, Norvell's offense, and now Silverfield with Cramsey. I mean, this Memphis team is it's built for a dual threat quarterback, and I'm happy to see it, and I just think it's Memphis can go places as long as they play their style and don't shoot themselves in the foot. And that's another thing. You really haven't seen that this year. You haven't seen Memphis kill themselves with penalties or stupid stuff. Yeah, occasional drop passes, but it's not been as noticeable as years past.
Well, I think the one exception to that was Troy's only score on Saturday came on a fumble and a return. And that's one thing we talk about, that turnovers are going to happen. Troy is sixth in the country since 2016. They've taken the ball away 203 times. They're going to turn you over. They turned Clemson over 2 or 3 times. They're going to turn you over. It's where they turn you over. And Memphis was good enough on Saturday and played good enough offensively to control the ball and control the field to where that one big play didn't hurt them. Now, the problem you're going to have going forward is those mistakes are going to start being magnified when you get a safety against Tulane, or you do that turnover against Navy, or at East Carolina. So that's what you have to avoid if you're Memphis, is you're going to make mistakes. These are kids. Ryan has said that a dozen times. These are 18 to 22-year-old kids. Mistakes are going to happen. It's how do you recover from those mistakes? And, I'll go back. Danny Wimpron made mistakes. Danny made stupid decisions. I remember the day I knew Riley Ferguson was the guy. It was coming off a 4-interception first half against Tulsa. And then it was like this switch flipped. Paxton made terrible decisions. I mean, quarterbacks are going to make bad plays. Guys are going to fumble. It's going to happen. It's where and how you respond. what happens, and this is what I noticed for Troy, and it's what I noticed for Georgia State. I always say that one of the hardest things to do in sport is learning how to win. Winning's not hard. Sorry, Josh Pastner, all due respect. Winning's not hard. Learning the process of winning and learning how to stack wins, that's what's hard. And you saw when Crowder went down, pardon my French, Troy had an oh shit moment. Like, what do we do? And then they also had the layover from a terrible second half at Clemson. So it's about how you respond to adversity. God, I sound like Ryan Silverfield right now. We knew we were going to see adversity, and it was how we were going to respond. But he's right. It's how you respond. And Larry, as you know, as a former player, you're the only thing shorter than my long jump has to be your memory.
Well, and so as a defensive player, yes, and offensively, you want momentum, right? That's what you want. You want to get into a rhythm. You get the play call. As a defensive player, when you saw an offense get into the rhythm, you knew you had to break that rhythm up somehow, and because that's what offenses are predicated on. If you look at Memphis's stats right now through a quarter, we are averaging 203 yards passing and 218 yards rushing. As a defense, that's really tough, because if you don't know if they're equally good at both of those things, it's hard to defend. And we talked about how basically, there was a point where Georgia State was just shelled up because they didn't know where to go. They didn't know what was coming. And that was also true. Like Memphis, and by the way, this is exactly what Memphis does. And when we realized, okay, this is just like middle last year, we realized they can't move the ball on us. They cannot move the ball. Well, Ryan just said, all right, we're going to just be as vanilla as we can possibly be. That's what he does. If he really thinks that you can't do anything, he's not going to go out there and try to hang 50 on you. That's not his style. He just beats you up. And to his credit, like they realized they were up 20. I think they were up 21-7 at the half. Really had not been scared at all by Troy's offense. And so again, what you're looking for as you talked about winning and stacking up wins, what to me that always referred to as being consistent. If you can be consistent on the field, and this is what Memphis has done for the last 3-4 years now, is be very consistent on the field. They are playing their brand of football. It took me a while to figure out what Silverfield's brand of football was, but what he likes is exactly what we're seeing here, with even offense, both passing and running, and hard-nosed defense. And basically, as you always like to say, John, he likes to play like a pro team. He goes out there and they just they dominate the line of scrimmage. And when they can't dominate the line of scrimmage, they make adjustments. So, guys, through the quarter of the year, I couldn't be happier. We're healthy relatively, and we won 2 games that we probably had no business being on the road, and yet we won them both handily. Can't ask for more.
Oh, and Jeb's right. I do want to shout out
Oh, yeah.
their punter, Troy's
Oh,
punter. I
man.
can't, my screen is not working here. Where is he?
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah,
My
I
goodness.
can't
Great
find
guy.
him off the top
Got
of my
nothing
head.
on this.
Crenshaw. Crenshaw punted the ball 11 times for 530 yards. He averaged 48 yards a kick. He had 3 punts of over 50 yards. I'm going to say a name that's going to reflect negatively on Memphis. And if you've been around a while, you know. Do we remember the year Tom Hornsey was on the
Yep.
media guide cover because he was easily the best player on the team? This dude kicked the cover off the ball. And Jonah was trying to look it up, but it's like it had been since like 1996. It was something Jonah Dillon posted. It was like been years since anybody had punted for more than 500 yards in a game. But the record, this is totally off topic, but the record, we looked up the record punting all time is a game in 1939. The 2 teams combined for 76 punts.
Jeez.
Good Lord.
So now I know what Kirk Ferentz watched to get himself into coaching. I'm sorry, I was out here catching strays. That's really not fair. But anyway, so shout out to the Troy punter, man. That dude. And the other thing he did is I think this is one game that Memphis wanted to see what Sutton could do in the punt return game. Because, I mean, let's face it, you knew you were going to get opportunities. But not only did that dude kick the cover off the ball, he was spot kicking it. Sutton had one opportunity to get loose. I think it was one punt, and I think he recovered for like 20 yards or something like that. Where is it? Yeah, 4 for 10, and 8 was the long one. So, just again, 28-7, the Tom Bowen Road Show is over. So now we move ahead to Arkansas. And before we get to Arkansas, we need to bring in who I hope is the man of the hour, but he is admittedly conflicted with Saturday because, and much ado about nothing again, but 3 times yesterday it rained within a mile of my house and did not touch grass here. 3 times. It happened 3 times. Early morning, while we were at dinner, and overnight. And of course, that is Erik's fault. But I will give you a pass on that as long as you keep your job here and tell us how wonderful everything is going to be on Saturday. Welcome in, Erik.
Hey, good evening, guys. And speaking of punting, let's talk about the forecast. We've got a very challenging forecast, and you guys are running on Tuesday nights and asking me to do something for Saturday morning at a particular time. You know how this works, but we'll give our best effort and see if we can carry into next week. But we do have coming out of really hot weather that we've had here for the last couple of weeks. Pattern is starting to change a little bit, and that means we'll have a frontal system kind of in the area this weekend. The models are all over the place for Saturday. Some of them have a complex of thunderstorms coming in early Saturday morning. Others say we're bone dry. The general pattern suggests that we probably ought to play it safe here and put a chance of thunderstorms in the forecast for Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium on Saturday. And it wouldn't necessarily just be, well, when it gets real hot in the afternoon, a chance, and then it dies out with sunset because we do have the front in the area. But temperatures are still going to be quite warm. We're not going to cool down drastically with this, but at least it won't be 95. A little bit of humidity in the air with the chance of thunderstorms around. Let's just see how this plays out and cross our fingers and hope for the best as we head into the big game against the Razorbacks this Saturday.
Yeah, so Saturday determines if you're back next week. But anyway, tell us, and just in case you're not back next week, tell us how people can follow you leading up to game week.
Well, try not to look in the dumpsters. Hopefully I won't be there, but should be on social media still. Even though my name is Muds many times, I still return and take the butt kicking anyway. So Memphis Weather 1 on Twitter, Facebook, Threads, Blue Sky, Instagram. You can find us all over the place, keeping you updated throughout every day here in the Mid-South on the weather. And, of course, the MemphisWeather.net website. The Stormwatch Plus app, haven't mentioned that in a little while. We'll be sneaking up on severe weather, secondary severe weather season here before long in the Mid-South. So check out Stormwatch Plus. That's our severe weather alert app. Works nationwide.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Erik. We appreciate you, and we'll probably have you back anyway.
Okay. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks. Have a great week. Erik Procius from MemphisWeather.net with the forecast for Saturday. And now we bring in our special guest from Hawgbeat, Kyle Sutherland. Kyle, how are you this evening, sir? You hear me?
He hear you. He can't. You're muted.
I'm not muted.
I'm notorious for muting myself, so sorry about that. But I'm doing well, guys. I was actually just watching you on my phone listening, so I had to make sure and get everything organized. But glad to be here. Really excited for Saturday.
Awesome. Yeah, looking forward to it. 2 teams haven't played since 1998, which just seems it feels like it's been more recent than that. But yeah, the 2 teams haven't played since 98. So before we get into the football part of this, I got about 40 seconds here, Kyle. I want to talk about something that Hunter Yurchek, the athletic director, had to say about NIL in Arkansas at the Little Rock Touchdown Club.
Let's all raise our hands. If you're driving down I-40 and the speed limit's 55, but you know there's not going to be a trooper out that day, how many are going 65? Right? That's what's happening in college athletics right now. And so you have to decide as an athletic director, are you going to get out in this lane that you know you're not supposed to be in and operate without the highest level of integrity, or do you want to stay in these two lanes? And that's where the rub is coming right now in college athletics. Until we get our enforcement agency up and running, you're going to continue to have schools operating in that third lane, and that's a bad place to be, in my opinion. It's bad for college athletics. And I don't want to operate there, but I think to be competitive, we may have to figure out what that third lane looks like for the University of Arkansas.
You know, Kyle, I thought that was interesting coming from the athletic director at Arkansas. And I think we're seeing more of this today where schools, you know, when I said all this started, when NIL started, I said the schools that are going to benefit the most are location based, like Memphis, just for instance, Alabama, of course, and schools like Arkansas that have a very, very wealthy alumni base. Or, you know, he mentioned Frank Fletcher Dodge, Frank Fletcher in there a couple times, of course, Tyson. So, what is kind of the feel around where Arkansas finds itself? Is that AD bluster, or is that maybe a more realistic place that Arkansas is in terms of off the field?
Well, I think it's definitely realistic, but it's just not something that an AD says. And that's kind of been the overwhelming consensus. Like, I was on a radio hit earlier, and that's pretty much what their show had talked. I was on an hour after they started, and that's pretty much all that they had talked about. It's all that's been talked about on my message board still. And so I think because there has been reports, and basically Pittman and Juracek have said that, look, we're a little behind the 8 ball on this and that when it comes to NIL. And Juracek is not a fan of NIL. He is not just basically, he has come out and said that. But I think that Arkansas fans knew it, but we would have rather been lied to and said that we are much closer. Because if he would have said this in July of 21 or August of 21, you still would have been very alarmed. But that was when NIL was brand new. Now we're past 4 years into it, and now you're saying these things. And really, how do we know basketball would be? Which basketball doesn't take as much money, obviously, to operate because you don't have near as big of a team. But at the same time, too, you mentioned Tyson. That's who's funding basketball, because John Tyson and John Calipari have been best friends for a long time.
Getting to the football side now, talk about the quarterback, Taylon Green. I mean, he's leading the team in rushing and obviously throwing. Just what type of special talent is he?
He is a very special talent, and we saw what he could be last year. Obviously, when you guys saw him last time against Memphis, he was not very good, got benched, and we saw a lot of those tendencies that he had at Boise State last year at Arkansas. Now, in the second half of the season, we didn't understand how hurt he was. He was very banged up, and we found that out right before fall camp. But I know that really Ole Miss is the best team that you've played thus far, but he's done everything that you could ask of him and more, minus the 2 picks against Arkansas State. So I think that people expected, especially Arkansas fans, expected him to take a big step forward being in year 2 under Petrino, but he's been phenomenal. I mean, the first player to do 300 passing and 100 yards rushing in a game in school history, to do that the other day, albeit in a loss. He has, I think, surpassed expectations a little bit, even though we expected him to be really good.
When I look at the offensive stats, one that pops out to me is the third down conversion, 72%. What do you equate that to this year?
I think a lot of it is just having great connection with his receivers. We had heard that throughout fall camp, that even though he's got a brand new room compared to last year, you know, Isaac Tesla is making crazy catches in the NFL, and guys have moved on here, you know, got someone at Oklahoma and things like that. But you bring in all these new receivers, and then Omega Blake was one that we expected to step up. But also, too, the offensive line has been really good. They've taken another group that has taken a massive step up from last year. So I think that you look at the offensive line, and that has been a big reason of not just what Taylon's been able to do, but the offense overall.
So let's switch to the defense. Obviously, this year, your first 2 games, Arkansas State, Alabama A&M, were not really big tests. You had a big test last week in Oxford. And honestly, you only give up 41 points, which sounds like a lot. But, hey, that Ole Miss team, that's pretty darn good. Even going back maybe to the Liberty Bowl, the defense is really sort of coalesced. And that's sort of Pittman's calling card. Do you think that going into this year, the defense could be the strength of this team?
I don't think so, especially right now. I think that they can definitely, because everything that they've talked about, and it makes sense. Like it's been schematic issues, and Pittman talked about on Monday that really it was just, and it was kind of alarming in a way, but also at the same time not, because it is fixable. It's just using the sideline more to push guys out of bounds, because Ole Miss just got loose so many different times. But guys, I think really the biggest thing is there has been a little. Now Ole Miss didn't have a lot of those developing plays. That, I mean, a lot of the stuff they ran was pretty quick, but you got to get a better pass rush. And Quincy Rhodes Jr. has done a great job. He's been dealing with a groin injury. He played 37 snaps, graded out at 86% against Ole Miss. But if he's a full go, then that's going to be a big help for your pass rush, because the defensive backs have been put. There's some situations where they've been put in some scenarios where they have to cover for 5+ seconds, and that's, I mean, no matter how good your defensive backfield is, that's a lot to ask of your secondary. So, and the linebackers, they've been a little bit hit or miss. So, to answer your question, I do think that they could be a lot better, but to me, the offense, especially if everybody stays healthy, Talon being that biggest one, that's going to really continue to be the strength of the team.
Well, you mentioned the linebackers. So this week, Memphis does like to run the football. That's sort of we talked about earlier in the show that we're a really balanced team. We average almost the exact same rushing and passing. Memphis likes to establish the run. Your linebackers have been sort of hit or miss. Talk to me about how are they going to deal with the speed of the Memphis running backs, and how are they going to combat that?
I think the biggest thing, first and foremost, is Xavier Sori. So he was dealing with, of course, that's your fifth-year senior that came in from Georgia a couple of years ago and as one of your team captains. He had a lingering hamstring injury. Didn't practice at all the week of the Alabama A&M game, and that was maybe the worst game he's played of his career. But he followed that up with the best game of his career against Arkansas State, and then that's when he was really hit or miss, was against Ole Miss. So I think first and foremost, you've got to get him going, because you've also got Steven Dix Jr. that's a seasoned backer too. But really, other than those guys, it's a lot of unproven guys that you've brought in from the transfer portal. Some guys that look pretty good in fall camp, but it really starts with those two guys. And you really need a strong game from your defensive. You got more depth now that David Oki is back there at defensive tackle. They really need more out of him. Cam Ball, which is another one of your fifth-year seniors, you need probably a little bit more than you've gotten out of him in some cases. So I think really just starting on that first level, you've got to really do your job a little bit better than we've seen as a collective group from the defensive line to help out your linebackers and ultimately your secondary and coverage.
So let's move to Larry's favorite part of the game, special teams. He loves kickers. So in these games, Kyle, as you know, like these kind of what I call play-up games for schools like Memphis, special teams can a lot of times determine the game. Memphis has had field goal woes. I think those are hopefully ironed out. Kickoffs are no problem. We haven't really been able to get kickoff returns going. But talk about the special teams, both from maybe the return perspective. I saw the Starzik is just 1 of 3 on field goals, but it's awful early to be talking about how good somebody is at field goals when you've only tried 3.
Yeah, no doubt. Of course, he comes in a true freshman, and the last true freshman that you had come in that highly heralded, highly ranked was Cam Little, and now he's hitting 70-yarders for the Jacksonville Jaguars in preseason, of course. But I think with Starzik, the first one that they missed, they probably should have gone for that 4th and 2, considering the field position and all those. But Pittman wanted to try to get points on the board first because he had a feeling it'd be a shootout. But I think that Starzik is going to bounce back. He's again, one of the top-rated kickers in the 25 class for a reason. Probably that pressure of 60,000 plus just got to him. Devin Bell is a great punter. We knew that he was going to be one of the better ones in the SEC. He's had a great year so far. Cam Shanks is one that you brought in from UAB that was one of the top returners in the entire country, maybe arguably the best one in the country, but hasn't really done a whole lot yet. Some of that hasn't had a whole lot of blocking, but he's definitely got to pick it up. But the kickoff coverage is what scares me the most. That's what one of the touchdowns that Arkansas State had. They returned one, just bad coverage, bad lanes taken. So I would say on special teams, like you said, Starzik is 1 of 3. He hit that 53-yarder against Alabama A&M in the opener. Of course, that was at home against Alabama A&M, so it's going to be a lot different on the road as we saw with Ole Miss. But to me, the kickoff coverage, guys, is the biggest concern for me with Arkansas right now.
So before we get your thought, I want to get your thoughts on if everybody's been under a rock. Of course, John Calipari was the coach at Memphis, and now he's back at Arkansas. He's coming back to Memphis on October 18th as part of the St. Jude Classic here, where the men's team will play an exhibition. So one of the knocks on John when he was here was he talked a lot about UMass. He opined about his UMass days. How does the Arkansas fan base, because he's got a complicated legacy, so how does the Arkansas fan base kind of feel about who he is today?
Well, since he had that Sweet 16 finish, and of course we're having
Makes it a lot better.
That was big, obviously, but they're hosting multiple top prospects. Like, this is one of the biggest recruiting weekends in Arkansas basketball history. Probably I would say maybe dating back to Musselman had, of course, he had those 3 5-stars in 2022, but this is one of the biggest recruiting weekends for basketball. And we'll have a piece on that on Hawgbeat tomorrow, but they're loving him right now, especially with how football has gone. And then you hear this stuff about Juracek that happened on Monday. But for the biggest knock on Cal coming in was, of course, that what he had done at Kentucky. What was it? He hadn't been out of the round of 64 in X. I can't remember exactly, but it had been a while. And then when he said that he was wanting to just play 8 or 9, that was a little bit of a head scratcher to some people. But then when he actually did that, and then he had the injuries, and then you're left with not really an ideal roster until things really started to come together in the back half of the season. I think now that everybody is thinking Final Four, and look, it should be another deep run in the NCAA tournament. So right now, with how he ended, especially going to that Sweet 16, there is a lot of love for it, and there's a lot of excitement for this season.
All right, well, back to the gridiron. So how do you see Saturday playing out?
I do think Arkansas is going to win. I think it's, again, going to be a competitive game. I did not say that about Alabama A&M. I did about Arkansas State, because I thought Arkansas State was going to come in extremely hungry, which they did to an extent, but Arkansas was just really unstoppable. But I will tell you guys, just because I think Arkansas, I can't remember my pick that I made for points-wise. I should have probably written that down before I came on, but I will say this. I am nervous about this because Ryan Silverfield's been a guy that, and look, Arkansas fans naturally have been talking about the possible next coach if things go south this year. And Silverfield's been on my top 5 list. I really respect him. I think he's a great coach. He's had especially two great seasons, had a few wins over P4 opponents. And he's certainly going to make his guys believe that they can win this game, because Memphis is a good football team. I do think Arkansas is ultimately going to win it, but I think that Arkansas could end up sweating it out some too, just because this is a quality opponent that you're playing against. You certainly don't want Ole Miss to beat you twice, but I do think it is going to be, probably maybe about at most maybe a 2-touchdown game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any means, but I do have the Razorbacks winning it. I'll say, for the show's sake, I'll say 41-31. I think could be. I do think that Memphis will score some points.
And we've got a 44-game, 20-plus point streak, longest in the country to hold up. So, Kyle, tell everybody how they can follow you this week.
Yeah, so you can follow me on Twitter at K_Sutherland AR. I'll post most of the stuff that we'll have on Hawgbeat there, and then you can go to Hawgbeat, HAWGBEAT.com. We'll have I've already got some stuff from Coach Silverfield's press conference, and then Bryan and I will be doing a Q&A session that I'll pick his brain. I'll put him on the spot a little bit, pick his brain. That'll probably run on Thursday. Usually we've been running those on Thursday, so we'll have all kinds of Memphis and Arkansas coverage all through the game, and then, of course, going through this weekend.
Awesome. Looking forward to seeing you on Saturday, sir.
Absolutely, guys. Take care. Appreciate the time.
Thanks.
Appreciate it, Kyle.
Kyle Sutherland from hogbeat.com. I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen Saturday. I've been more sure than I think anybody else has that Memphis was going to win this game. I still think Memphis wins, but I'll be honest. I disparaged the good name of Taylor Green. I don't think I realized, because keep in mind, the last time we saw him, we effectively ended his Boise State career. Memphis comes back from 17 down to win that game, and he was terrible. But
yeah, he only had 50% passing,
Yeah.
12-24, I think.
yeah, and
so, they bench him and go on a run and end up winning the conference, right? Which leads to last year's big run. But Here's the thing, and I just think I think weather could definitely play a role in this. If Eric's right and we get rain or you've got bad weather, that helps Arkansas, right? We want a dry field, we want a fast field, because we may not be as big as Arkansas, but we are as fast as Arkansas in most positions. So this is going to be a game where we're not going to shut them out, but I don't think defensively they're good enough to shut us out either. So, yeah, look, if our quarterback gets hot, then we could definitely run up and down the field on them. If their quarterback gets hot, we could be in for a really long day, guys. So I, I I will tell you, there's a lot of similarities in this game to the Mississippi State game a couple of years ago. There's a lot of similarities because there you go. Yeah,
Great
I didn't.
minds and all that stuff.
So there's a lot of similarities because of the talent level is not as large as I think a lot of Arkansas fans probably are thinking there is. Um, and and I do think at the end of the day, and boy, this is tough to. I mean, you guys have been listening to the show, you understand. We have the better coach, and I don't know that it's particularly up for debate. And now, I mean, I know that Arkansas has a lot of talent, but man, I just think it's going to be bedlam in that stadium too. Like it's going to be packed, assuming it's not.
I don't think that's going to matter. I think even if it rains, there's going to be a crowd. We're down to under 3,500 tickets. I heard today. Well, let's not go scores yet. But Bryan, where's your head with this?
Man, this was difficult because before the season, I had a feeling that this would be, an early kickoff on national TV because I thought, Arkansas would have a pretty good shot at being 2-1, Memphis being 3-0, but it's on ABC. Memphis does something. I mean, there's something special about Memphis on ABC in the past 10 years. I wrote about their 9-1.
Yeah.
In the past since 2015 when home games are aired on ABC. What I forgot to check is the game times for that, but still, ABC Memphis, man, it's hard to beat that. Both quarterbacks are running quarterbacks. I think this is just going to be a one of. I don't know. I haven't looked at the entire schedule yet, but this might be one of the best games to watch on Saturday. And boys, it's hard to predict. I can see it going. Like Kyle said, I don't think anyone's going to blow anybody out. It's going to be man. This come a type of game that could come down to special teams. Memphis has the better kicker.
You just made Larry.
Larry.
But I mean, I think
Ask Tennessee how that worked out.
That's true.
That's College true. Kickers Tennessee edition. I do think we're onto something here. I think that Mississippi State game is an interesting parallel. I think this Arkansas team is probably a little better than that Mississippi State team was. But I think this game's going to go one of two ways. At first, I thought Memphis was going to come out guns a-blazing and blow Arkansas out because I didn't think Arkansas was very good. Now, are they good? Who knows? They hung with Ole Miss, but their defense has a lot of questions. Jeb is willing Sutton Smith. He is manifesting Sutton Smith returning a kickoff for a touchdown as his bold prediction for week 3. We asked him in postgame last week, and he wanted the 10-yard return he had back. He said, I just needed to miss one more dude, and I was gone. So anyway, this is either going to be that Mississippi State game. And Memphis they're better now than they were in 2001. And you do have a new dynamic with Brendan Lewis. But these games tend to go one of two ways. These games tend to go. They either go the Mississippi State route, or if you want to go way back, one of those crazy Thursday night Louisville games that ended up like 56-51, or they go the way of that Mississippi game where Memphis gets Bryce Huff gets the safety at the end to close out a 15-10 game. And those are the games that if Memphis is involved in its ABC, let's get weird. Like something weird is going to happen. It's just going to, it was Tim Hart picking off Josh Rosen on the single hottest day I've ever been at a Memphis football game to lead Memphis over UCLA. It was Bryce Huff getting the safety. Like it's always this weird, something weird.
We could even have one of the Houston day after Thanksgiving game where we look bet MGM we are a 7-point dog. Okay,
that feels right.
Yeah,
and that feels right.
Right, and so I just think this is going to be a way closer game, one way or another, John. I think this is going to be a way closer game. I don't think it's a 7-point game. I don't think it's a 14-point game. And I think Arkansas fans have looked at how badly they beat Arkansas State, and they're like, oh, wow, we're way better than we think we are. I don't know that that's true. But they hung with Ole Miss, but and I'm not saying we're going to win at all. I am going to say that I just don't think the talent level between these two programs is nearly what I think some Arkansas fans are thinking. And I know I've said that once, but I'm going to say it one more time. Because when you look at the talent gap, we've all said this, between with these very upper level G5 teams and the lower end of the P4, whatever they are now, it's just not that great. We saw it with West Virginia last year. We saw it with Iowa State. We're going to see it again on Saturday. That talent gap is not there, guys. Now, so it's really going to be a toss-up, and it really is, like Jeb said, it's going to be who gets hot and who makes a play.
And who makes a mistake, because that's the other side of a play is who makes a mistake. And I'll say, this is obviously much ado about nothing, but yes, Arkansas hung with Mississippi. Mississippi was playing with a quarterback that played for the D2 national champions last year. And that's not to disparage the job he did. He was outstanding, but that game's probably a lot different with Austin Simmons. I don't think the game's as close, but that's not to say, because Arkansas's issues are on the defensive side of the ball. Let me just put that out. That's where their issues are. Kick coverage, defensive side of the ball. Their offense is outstanding. They have speed everywhere. They're big up front. They have great quarterback play. And, I said special teams, but there are two areas that these step-up games show themselves in. That's depth, especially on the lines, and special teams. Those are where these sort of games where Memphis, although you're right, man, that talent gap is much closer now than I guarantee it was much closer now than it was in 1998. Memphis is 3-2 all time against Arkansas. Like, let that, as bad as Memphis was 3-2 all time against the Razorbacks. So here's the thing about, Ryan, we talk about running this like a professional organization. I can't guarantee you anything, but I will guarantee you that Ryan Silverfield is not as scared of Arkansas as Hugh Freeze was of Memphis when Ole Miss came up here and lost. Memphis has nothing to fear at this point. If they lose, which is a distinct possibility. Yeah, Chuck Stobart owned Arkansas. So I can guarantee Memphis is not afraid.
No.
Because there's nothing to Memphis. This is why the SEC schools aren't going to play these games anymore. Arkansas this could torpedo. This could be the last, if Memphis does what I thought they were going to do preseason, and let's say they came out and they housed Arkansas, Sam Pittman's looking for a job. And this could be a close game, and Arkansas lose a close game. That could also be true, that he might be looking for a job. But I just think Memphis is not afraid, and they have nothing to be afraid of. But if Memphis loses this game, all their goals are still in front of them.
Right.
Right? Like everything they want to do is still in front of them because we had anointed South Florida as the second coming of Boise State last year. They got smacked in the face of reality. So Memphis, Tulane are sitting there like, all right, well, everybody's still in this. So if Memphis were to lose, all their goals are still in front of them. Arkansas loses. This changes the trajectory of their season. And Bryan, that leads me to Arkansas is going to have their backs against the wall because they have everything to lose in this scenario. Memphis, and it's not going to happen, if Memphis came out and got beat 42-14, people are pissed for 6 days and life moves on and they go beat the hell out of Florida Atlantic and off we go again. But Arkansas is in a different spot. And are they going to be hungover? Are they going to, as Kyle so eloquently said, are they going to lose to Ole Miss twice? Or are they going to be focused and say, this is really, I'm never comfortable with this in September, but Bryan, this is pretty close to a must win for Arkansas, I think.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And I'm sure it's in their heads as well when they take a look at the game tapes and see that Memphis plays well, against SEC teams. So, early kickoff, ABC. I mean, they got to see that. That's why I think this is going to be one of the best games on Saturday. There's so many matchups here that's going to be fascinating to watch. I think Sutton Smith can have a fantastic day. I wouldn't be surprised if Brendan Lewis, will air it out. I guess my bold prediction, or I'll do it early. Brendan Lewis throws for 300 and rushes for 100.
All right, Larry, your bold prediction.
That Memphis rushes for more yards than Arkansas this week, which I that may not sound like bold, but I mean Arkansas is running the ball over everybody. So
yeah, they're rushing pretty good. They got average 245
right
so far.
Memphis will turn Arkansas over 4 times. That's my bold prediction. They will cause 4 turnovers. And here's another thing as we're kind of playing. I can't ever remember his names. Here's something that only you and I know, George. Would you like to know Arkansas's next game? Oh, just an angry Notre Dame team coming in next Saturday at 11 a.m. And then they do get a week off, and then they go to Tennessee, have Texas A&M and Auburn. That's Memphis fans talk about how our schedule makers hated us in the past. Holy crap. that's a tough go. So it just, that's the thing is it's just going to depend does Arkansas let Mississippi beat them twice? Do they kind of bow their necks and say, we can't afford to lose to Memphis, just kind of as a general statement? All right, Bryan, I'm going to put you on the spot first. It will be, let's see, it's a TV game, 2:37 and 30 seconds p.m. on Saturday, and the scoreboard at Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium will say,
man, this is so difficult to think about because I really think weather is going to dictate a lot of things. If it stays clear, I do think Memphis can score some points. I think it's going to come down to special teams. And I will say Gianni will kick a 51-yarder to win it 34-31.
Wow.
All right. Well, that was oddly specific, Larry.
I agree with Bryan on one thing, and with you, John, on one thing. This is either going to be a high-scoring game or it's going to be extremely low-scoring. And I don't think it goes either way. I think it's high-scoring. I think Arkansas's offense is really good. Their defense is really not very good. And I think this game gets into the 40s. I predicted Arkansas would win this game at the beginning of the year. I'm going to stick with that prediction. 44-41 Arkansas.
That's just like when my wife is waiting for everybody else to order and it finally comes back to her. And now I got to actually come up with something. Shoot. I mean, these games are so, yes, Mike, that's what we were just talking about. Arkansas does have Notre Dame next week. And I wonder if that factors into this a little bit as as I think through this, but I just worry about depth. That's my concern. And Memphis' secondary has taken some hits. You know, you had Cortland Marsh out for the year. Chauncey Logan is on the depth chart, of course. That doesn't really mean anything sometimes at Memphis. Greg DeWosier, what's his position? Have we just been kind of holding him out? Memphis will be, one thing I can guarantee, Memphis will be sky high going into this game. And will the coaching staff be able to kind of corral that to avoid? My worry is the big mistake. That's my worry, that this kind of gets off the that Ladarius, we're not Arkansas fans, I promise. That kind of is where I think it could get off the rails, right? A little bit is where if you can't lose this game on the bus, and
Right.
you know that means you can't, get the kickoff, turn it over, Hogs score quickly, get the kickoff, fumble the kick. Arkansas now it's 14-0, and we're 10:35 into the game.
Right. You can't get behind the scoreboard. I think Jeb pointed that out. You have to,
but if Memphis can make Arkansas do that,
right,
and Arkansas has lost and Memphis hasn't, and we can, it's quality competition. At some point, Arkansas lost, Memphis hasn't. Arkansas has struggled the last how long Sam Pittman been there, and even before that. And Memphis has been very good. And like we were talking about with Erik and the weather, persistence comes into this at some point, right? Like trends are trends for a reason. And all right, I'll say it. Memphis 35, Arkansas 32. I think it's going to be a really close game. I will be stunned at this point if either team blows the other team out. I will just be shocked, beyond anything. If Memphis blows Arkansas out, Arkansas blows Memphis out, I'll be really surprised, because I think these are two, as we've been harping on, these are two really evenly matched teams. Because I can't even say, other than one game, Arkansas's quality of competition hasn't been that much better. Of course, the Mississippi one is glaring, but they've played two warm bodies too. So I just think that this is going to be close. Here's another bold prediction. This will be the closest game Memphis plays all year. I think every other game is probably a 7 to 10 point swing one way or another when you're talking about Tulane and Navy and you get down the road. But I think this is the closest game, because other than Tulane, and boy, Jeb, you said it, we have the talent to win and the coaching to overcome their coaches. And
that's true.
I add a third thing here real quick before we go. I said, depth and special teams. These are the games where coaching and quarterback play matter. And I just think Memphis is better at all of that. I think the USF game will be a bit of a knife fight, but I still feel like this will be a closer game, because I think that's a game where it's going to really depend on where their head is. So, but anyway, long time to go before we get there. And also, if you were, excited to learn when Memphis was going to play FAU on the 27th yesterday, then you're bad news. You got to wait another week. We will find out probably Sunday morning, if not late Saturday night. It will heavily depend on the outcome of this game. So, that's quite a show. Thanks for Kyle for coming over at Hawgbeat, and thanks for Erik, of course, MemphisWeather.net, and for the best co-hosts in all the land, Larry Marley and Bryan Moss. This is John Maddox signing off and saying we will see everybody next week.